You are now tuned into Almost 30 Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Lindsay Simsick and Krista Williams.
It's your girls. We're so glad you're here. We know there's a lot of podcast choices out there, and it means so much that you choose Almost 30 as your destination for inspiration, for laughs, for a little bit of fun, a little bit of depth.
I can tell we're recording in the morning
I was just going to say,
because we have our morning voices.
it's 8 a.m. It's 8 a.m. here in Los Angeles, and
You might be driving to your place of work.
yes,
I want you to think about one thing you're grateful for.
I want you to
Holy
think about
moly.
something that makes you smile.
I miss radio a little bit. We're radio.
But we
you,
are
You
radio.
know when you
Yeah.
listen to radio, like when you were younger, and it was so comforting in the car? Do you remember that? Like the personalities?
My mom listened to Terry Gross growing
Oh,
up
I
on
feel
it.
like my dad did
My mom
too.
was NPR all day,
Yes.
and I used to make me sick, to be honest.
You're like,
Because it was just talking. I don't know what about it, but being in the car with I would be like sick. I'd be like, please no.
my
She's
dad
like, I love Terry
was
Gross.
was NPR. My dad would listen, and it would be all maybe it wasn't NPR, and it was all crackly, and they're just like, and then the traffic, and then the this, and it was the same freaking cycle
Oh,
the
really?
whole ride. I
I
don't
know
know,
NPR was Fresh Air, and then there was
so not that.
and then there was a game show. They actually had this game show that I wish I could remember the name, but it was and then they had this other car show. It was like Mike. His name was Mike, and he did a car show, and it was I don't even know,
Good job, NPR.
honestly. But yes, I remember that. So it is morning here in Los Angeles, and we're really excited about this episode. If you are from the Jenna Kutcher squad, welcome.
Mhm.
She is even more delightful and incredible. And in person, I feel so inspired after being with her yesterday and having dinner and getting to spend one-on-one time together as friends. And I mean, I told Lindsay this morning, I'm like, we need to rewrite
Our dinner
our
notes.
whole ethos. I honestly, I'm inspired by so many of our friends, and we're in this space where we're having inspiring conversations multiple times a week. But that one felt so good.
Yeah, it was, to use the word we always use, it was very expanding. And I feel like it was one of those conversations where, I was inspired by the life she's built, the business she's built, but there was also this like quality of the way in which she was speaking about it and really owning it. That was, I think, part of the magnetism,
Yes.
where there was this ease with which she was talking about her success and her life. And I just really appreciated that like openness.
Mhm.
And I appreciated the pride. She's
Yes.
she's really proud. And and in a way that is like lovely and like
Yes.
inspiring. I really, yeah, I love her.
I think there was a quality of satisfaction
Mm.
to her life and her work that I felt and feel so inspired by because I feel like as achievers and doers,
Mhm.
you always think you're going to get to a place where you feel satisfied with the number, with the followers, with whatever it is. And she truly feels satisfied.
Yeah.
My perception is she feels satisfied and there's a satisfactional energy. And in our space, it's like, okay, now that you've done this, what about this? What about a course? What about this? What about all these things? And she's always done things in right time. And
Mhm.
it's like it feels like she would have a business that sustains and supports her life rather than sacrificing her life for her business,
Yes.
that's the true feminine. That's the
Mhm.
perfect balance of the masculine and the feminine when we think about it, the perfect balance for her. There's no perfect balance, but I think we talk a lot about being in the feminine. How can we do that? And it seems really beautiful that she's made it work in this really unique way for her,
Mhm.
where she can have discernment, have boundaries, have her husband support her with the family,
Mhm.
but yet she has a balance within her team and business that feels really good and nurturing for her. It's powerful.
Yes. And even just to spend, extra time with her, I just saw these little moments where I'm like, "Oh, this is how you stay connected to your family." Like she just had a baby, and now she's doing just a very quick trip of many interviews for her new book coming out. But I was like, "Oh yeah, this is real." And not all of this is, and we know this, right? Not everything is on social media. But I'm like, wow, it takes intention, it takes coordination, it takes being as present as possible. I think she was putting Coco to bed at one
Yeah.
point while she was here, and I was like, "Wow, yeah, that really is a part of the whole thing,"
Mhm.
because if you can't do that, at least in her experience, she's like, "If I can't do that, then why am I doing this?"
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And so many people say that
Mhm.
in interviews and just in life. They're like, "If you're not enjoying life, then why are you doing it?" But they get caught up themselves.
Sure.
And it
Been there.
actually seemed very truthful about the
Yes.
embodiment of that. So, in following to our hangout in this conversation, Lindsay and I, and you're learning about this now.
So we are going to do this. I'm gonna skip my flight.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
honestly. He's moving back in with me. And, so well, what I would like to do
Mhm.
is take out the pieces of our conversation and our hang and, this interview with her. What do I find myself attracted to in the way that she shows up, in the way that she operates? What
Mhm.
about how she lives her life do I find expansive? And what can I model for myself, or how can I move more closely to that? For me, it's her boundaries,
Mhm.
and her boundaries are all energy. It's actually when you first start to learn boundaries, you're like, "No, I'm sorry. I can't." It's
Yes.
like you actually have to kind of it becomes
It's a
some it's
reaction.
a reaction. But eventually when you're in your energy so much, you understand that boundaries are actually very just energetic,
Mhm.
because if you have great boundaries, people won't even ask you for shit. They'll
Yes.
understand their place and their space. So her boundaries are powerful, really beautiful. There's great discernment.
Mhm.
I mean, the way in which she says no to things.
I know. The things she was saying no to, I was like,
I know, honestly.
"What?" That's amazing.
Honestly. And
Without fear.
she would negotiate things
Mm.
so smartly.
Mhm.
Even she talks about this on the podcast, but for recording her audiobook, they were like, "Hey, we wanna fly you out. You gotta record your audiobook. Takes this long." She's like, That's not gonna work. It's gonna take too long to be away from my kids." Figures out a solution, makes it work for her,
Mhm.
leverages her contacts,
Yes.
and does it in less time. Like,
Mhm.
it's just crazy.
Yeah. It's it's very, very expanding. I think for me too, it was, if we're looking at the business part where she allows what she's created to live and breathe, and I guess you can call
Yeah.
that evergreen, sure, the evergreen offerings. But I think there's more to that where she's created something she's really proud of, which we have done too. And it's allowing it to live out in the world and then go behind it and be strategic about the way in which we are
Mhm.
sharing it on a consistent basis. And I think that for me was really inspiring because I do feel live launches are amazing and so fun. And the fact that we get to like really be with people is so valuable. But I also think the putting it out, taking it back, putting it out, taking it back, sometimes that energy, I'm like, oh, I'm curious about the letting the creation live and breathe out in the world. What will it do?
Mhm.
So that was really inspiring. And then just the way in which she is, I mean, outside of that, like just investing in things that matter to her,
Yeah.
whether it's properties or, spaces. And I'm sure y'all know she does Airbnb a few properties. And even just that doesn't have to be something we do, but it's more so like thinking outside of the box and like allowing her creative energy to be also there,
Mhm.
like in creating these spaces and having passive income, which is
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah, that kind of Karina Dawn does that as well with Tone It Up,
Mhm.
and that's really worked for her. And yeah, there is like, and that's the feminine too, where you're making a home.
Mhm.
You're making a home opportunity for other people. So
Yes.
you guys will really love this episode. It is such a joy and a delight. We talk a lot about passion and purpose. We talk a lot about boundaries, saying no. We talk about her journey with motherhood in the book. We talked about body and her relationship to her body and body image. She's someone that I really love how open she shares. And I actually found her through the viral article
Mhm.
about Meet Mr. or Six Pack Husband or something.
Yeah.
Something so ridiculous
So
that it
ridiculous.
exists. Um, but you can find her on the Gold Digger podcast. You can find the book out now. It is out today. It is How Are You Really?
Yeah, it's an incredible book, and, um, I also loved hearing about the process of writing this book. She almost did it in reverse, where she wrote the entire book, and it was one of those things where she's like, okay, well, I wrote it. So here it is. And so I think that also afforded her a little bit of room to kind of like just negotiate as far as like editors and like who she really wanted. And um, yeah, I was really, really inspired by that as well. So, How Are You Really is the book, as Krista said. If you're not following Jenna on Instagram, get to it at Jenna Kutcher. And she has all of her courses, programs, and more about her at jennakutcher.com.
Yes. All right. Thank you for tuning in to Almost 30. We have episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. We talk about spirituality, wellness, health, sometimes entrepreneurship, and we really just want to bring amazing content to you every single week. We have courses and programs, and we also help podcasters with Podcast Pro. You can go to almost30.com to find more information about us, blog posts, courses, programs, etc.
Thank you all for listening. We will see you on the other side.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
I am a believer in collagen, and I have a new way that I love to get my daily collagen intake. The brand is Beauty and the Broth. So, this is a total beauty elixir, y'all. I have seen the improvement in my skin, in my hair, in my nails, and it starts from the inside out, I swear to you. So, Beauty and the Broth uses 100% whole organic and collagen rich ingredients and bones to create shelf stable, compact concentrates. So these are little bags that you can take with you everywhere. And it's 2 times stronger than any other bone broth on the market after water is added. So I take these packets with me on the road when I'm traveling for work, or I just have them here at the house. And I basically boil hot water, add the concentrate, and I have a nice big bowl cup of the bone broth. And it is so delicious. This is packed with nutrients and collagen. And I am just so impressed the fact that they can make it shelf stable with no preservatives. So you can make more room in your freezer and fridge, put these in your pantry, and they are absolutely delicious. This is worth it. Collagen is one of the building blocks of like us as human beings. It is such an important part of your daily nutritional intake. And Beauty in the Broth, I love it because there's no artificial flavors, preservatives, phthalates, sugars, and no salt added. All organic, grass-fed, ranch-raised beef and vegetarian-fed, free-range chicken bones. They also have a vegan option, which is so awesome. So if you are wanting glowing skin, stronger nails and hair, if you want improved recovery, increased energy, better sleep, better digestion, boosted immunity. I mean, truly, the benefits are endless. Go to thebeautyandthebroth.com. Use the code almost30nation, almost30nation to get 20% off. Go right now, thebeautyandthebroth.com. Use the code almost30nation for 20% off. We have been working with Hum Nutrition for years and years and years. Honestly, they were our first partner here at Almost 30 and are still our partners, and for good reason. I love Hum Nutrition supplements. They are potent, they are triple tested, and they truly work. I am on a regimen, and I wanted to share what I'm currently taking from Hum Nutrition. I take Flattermine, which supports a just really kind of like debloating situation, healthy digestion. It has a blend of 18 full spectrum digestive enzymes that help break down food for better digestion and reduce bloating. So I've just noticed a flatter stomach and just a more easeful digestive experience. I am also taking Red Carpet. Anyone out there just want better hair, skin, and nails? Oh, you? Okay. Well, their Red Carpet is a formula that I've been taking for quite some time now, and I just love it so freaking much. The formula has black currant seed oil and vitamin E, which really nourishes your hair follicles and skin to help you just be red carpet ready, baby. I love it so much. And I wanted to also shout out the Omega the Great, OMG, Omega the Great. These are the omega 3s that we all need. And I just love this formula. I take 2 every single day, and I've just noticed such a difference in my brain function. It's also really good for heart health and immunity. So make sure you get your omegas. But you can go to humnutrition.com and take their quiz, and you'll get recommendations based on your answers. And you'll also get the support of a registered nutritionist. So you can ask them any questions. Go to humnutrition.com, use our code almost30. You're going to get 20% off your first order of $29 or more. Code is almost 30 when you go to humnutrition.com. You're going to get 20% off your order of $29 or more. I'm so happy to be in person. This is our last interview for this trip. And I was like, oh man, what a way to close it out. And, just being quote internet friends for quite some time and
forever
being connected in that way and just admiring you. I'm like so happy to be just
same.
jamming in person.
My husband, I told him you're coming. He's like, oh, the homie.
Oh, the homie. I mean, and I was like, can we get nachos after this, please?
Yes, and we are.
Yes.
But it was cute because it's like, sometimes with your parents, you're like, Mom, it's Caitlin. You know Caitlin.
Yeah.
And they have no idea who your friends are. Yes. He's like, oh, the homie. I was like, totally.
Yes, we're in.
I was like, and the book, I'm so excited because we were talking about our last interview a little bit about the book writing process, which I want to talk about. But there was a post you did the other day that felt like just so true to my heart about how strangers can support you more than people that are close to you. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I've experienced that in my life, and so have you.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think we all do. And it's so interesting to me because even sometimes I have like family members who literally won't even ask me about my work or acknowledge my work. And Drew and I will sometimes have jokes about like, what are we going to talk about? The weather and sports, because we live in this day where I think we have more fear of what people who know us will think than strangers on the internet. And it's funny too, because I'm in this process where people are finally reading my book. And I feel so like Drew texted me the other day. He hadn't even read it. And he was like, I'm reading your book. And I was like, I would way rather have like Cornelia read this book than you.
Yes.
Because I'm like, oh, I like feel naked on the page. But it is interesting because the quote that you're talking about was on Instagram. And it was just saying that people who are strangers support you more because the people who know you see where you're going and they're still where they were, where you used to be. And I relate to that so much because I moved away from home for 12 years and then came back. And I never thought I would come back. And I'm a different person. I mean, I hope we all would be in a decade. But it is really easy to feel like nobody's going to understand me. And do I even want to help them to understand me?
Yes.
Is it worth it? And so, yeah.
It's tough. I know. I wonder that too with family because I always come up against that when I'm with them where we're kind of Midwest peeps. And so you come up and you're like, okay, we're going to talk about weather and sports and
small talk.
And it's one of those things where you don't want to be like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And don't you see me doing this? Because then that doesn't feel right. So it feels like you're abandoning yourself, but it's such a weird dynamic. And I always feel like I'm being inauthentic, but I don't know how to be authentic in the moment.
You know what I think it is?
Yeah.
Is that the people who don't acknowledge it, they're watching. They're the silent observers.
Yes.
They never comment. They never like, but they watch everything.
Yes.
And they think that everything you share is your entire life. They forget that like it's 60 seconds. It is 1 minute of my day. And so they think there's nothing to talk about. I know because I follow. Which is so far from the truth.
100%.
And I also think there's a feeling around, especially if it's close friends or family, where they see, and I have this experience, so I'll speak from my experience of like sharing vulnerably or just sharing, right? Like sharing online, and I haven't shared with them yet. Nothing crazy, but where there's that feeling of, are we connected?
Yes.
And
that's a good point,
why?
Linz.
And I realized that, especially in moving back and seeing my family a bit more and having that feedback or feeling with them where I'm like, oh, they think I either am one way and I'm not, or they see this like life out in LA and they're like, okay, and she's sharing a lot and this is kind of weird, and do we even know her?
Yeah.
And it's somewhat true where like I feel like I did need to reintroduce myself a little bit, where I'm like, oh yeah, I am different. And so are you. And I would love to like get to know each other deeply and truthfully from this point, rather than kind of guessing.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, don't you feel like though too, it's like I'm constantly meeting the newer version of myself.
Yeah.
Yes, every day. Yeah.
Every single
Yeah,
day.
and
It's,
so
like,
it
scary.
is.
It's not scary,
Yeah.
but you're like, "Is it the moon? Is it
Yeah.
my period?
Is it COVID?
Is
Who
it
knows?
COVID? Is it, like, my team? Is it my It's like,
Yeah.
there's so
Mhm.
many parts of the formula that make us different in every moment and make us change, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
how do you find yourself with the new versions of you? Like, how do you find yourself meeting those new versions, and what would you say the new version of you is like today?
Hmm. I welcome the evolution now. I used to resist change, and I think so many people can relate to that, but it's wild because change means uncertainty. But guys, look at we just survived 2 years of utter uncertainty. And hopefully we're coming out of it different people than we were when it started. But change to me is like an invitation of like
Mm.
challenge and being stretched and evolution and contradiction and like all of these things. And it's really fascinating because I often think about like Drew and I have been married for almost 11 years. And like we are totally different people than when we said those vows. And yet we've both come home to ourselves over and over and over again and reestablished what that means. But we've also come back to each other every time. And it's like this like circling of like, oh, I am different than I was, or I said I would never and now I am. And and so it's fascinating to me because it's like we all resist and avoid change, but like change is where we grow. And I'd rather be evolving than
Mhm.
standing still.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, unless you love every single part of your life, then change should be welcome, because if you have parts where you're like, yeah, that could be better, it's like, then change is good.
Yeah.
Why don't
Mhm.
our brains always go to the negative with change? So in relationship, how do you manage to do that? Is that a conversation? Like, how do you do the dance of evolving separately, but evolving together?
So, I mean, we have a lot of funny practices, but we recently joined this app. This is not sponsored.
I cannot wait.
And it's called Paired,
Okay.
Paired. And Drew and I have never done any like formal marital counseling or anything like
Mm.
that. Before we got married, we had to like sit down with the
Of
pastor and do our
course.
Myers
He's like,
Briggs.
do you watch porn?
Yeah, it was like, okay. But this app, so I've always joked that I like missed out on like Tinder or like things like I'm
Yes.
like, I've been married since I was 23. Like I missed all of those things. And Paired is like Tinder for married couples where it asks you one question a day and you cannot see the other person's response until you respond. So it's
I'm
like
obsessed.
Drew responded, unlock his answer, but you have to answer it first. So you don't know what they're saying. You can't say it, however. So like a funny example
I
was
love that.
we got, yeah, you guys have to get it. It's amazing. I was like, can you please give me an affiliate code? But
Your affiliate game. I love it. Literally.
I am ruthless.
Anything you like, you're like affiliate.
Respect.
But like the other day, it was like, what is a question you've been meaning to ask your spouse but haven't made time for? Or, how do you feel? Like this was a funny one, but it was like, how do you feel when you handle arguments via text? And Drew writes, I hate it. Why are we not talking in person? And I write, I love it. It gives me time to think about what I'm going to say and hit the backspace 800 times before I say something I regret. And I was like, how have we been together for over a decade and like never processed how we like to argue? I mean, we don't argue that much to me. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
But it's been actually a really good tool because I feel like right now we are in the thick of parenting. Like it couldn't be thicker than the thick.
Mhm.
And if we're not careful, like we just talk about kids and maybe work for a hot
Mhm.
minute, but it is like we are just teammates in this like ping pong match of kids. And so it's been really cool for us to like have those prompts that then invite us to dive deeper without us being like, how do you feel about our intimacy? Or like there's questions of like, do you feel desired by your partner? Or like, I mean, and things like that where it's just like, oh, yeah, we're humans. Then we're a couple, then we're parents. And that's been really helpful for
Mhm.
us.
Do you set aside time to kind of go deeper on the prompts?
Some of them, like some of
some of
them
them are
I'll
a
be
little
like,
surface
what
and
in the
whatever.
what? And then like some of them I'm like, oh,
Do you
do
ever
you want,
feel like,
do you want me to
oh,
grab your butt a little bit more? Does that make you feel more
Ah,
desired? Like,
yes,
we'll let you know what I mean? And so it's just like, we have fun with it. But it is
That's
like a
fun.
cool invitation of like entering
yes.
conversations. And I'm like, and it's built by marriage counselors. So, anyways, plug for that app because it has been a really good tool of like 5 minutes a day and then go deeper if you want to. But I think it is very easy when you are in states of evolution or heavy seasons, whether it's parenting or career or relational or whatever. to come back to like discussions because it's like, how often do you just
Mhm.
coexist with the people that are closest to you?
Mhm. It's like that structure is really healthy, I feel like, for very unpredictable
Yes.
seasons. How do you, on the flip side, because I see you from afar, I'm like, oh my gosh, her systems, her like
Oh,
everything
yeah.
I
within her
know, I
business,
can't.
everything's, which I'm
S
sure we'll get
makes me so
into.
excited.
Yeah.
And like when, you are giving birth and you
Mhm.
have a new being to take care of, and now two, and a family, like how do you go with the flow when you are
Yeah.
so used to having these structured
Mhm.
systems and all of that?
It all runs without me now. I mean,
Yeah.
it
I can't.
can. And I say that
My
with
dream.
so much confidence and love because I have built a business that supports my life and not a life
Mhm.
around my business. Truly, truly. It's funny. So I'm in LA doing a bunch of interviews, and one of my friends yesterday, I was there, and she's like, "Oh, stick around a while. Like go work up by the pool." And I said, "I don't have any other work to do." And she goes, "Grab your laptop," and I was like, "I don't have it here." And she was like, "What?" That's fascinating. And I was like, "No, no, no, like, I'm just here. I'm, like, all here. I'm, like, all
Wow.
in. I'm, like,
Mhm.
protecting my energy, and, like, that is just how I operate." And, of course, there are heavy seasons, but
Mhm.
I do it at a pace that feels good. So, like, this week, it's a grind. Next week,
Mm.
it's free. And I honor that pace, and yes, I can hustle, but that's not, like, the go-to.
Yeah.
What made you come to that point? Because so many people are hustling and they're like,
Mhm.
"Okay, but I wanna be as successful as you.
Mhm.
How do I get there by having that balance?" Is
Mhm.
there a period of hustle that's necessary? Like, what was your journey to that?
Yeah. So, in the book, I share a couple different stories around this because right now I feel like female entrepreneurs are facing two camps. I want to know if you guys agree because
Mhm.
actually, this is really a good conversation for the three of us. So, I feel like in a polarizing world where everyone is like, which side are you on? We feel like there are two sides there's the manifestation side, the woo side, and there's the hustle side, the work
Mhm.
side.
Yeah.
And my editor, when she chose my book and like said, like, I want to do this with you, I asked her why. Why this book? Why me? And she goes, I just feel like there are two camps that are only being displayed in entrepreneurship. And you are where the woo meets the work.
Mhm.
You live in a space where you like hold visions and cast visions, but you're also willing to work towards them.
Mhm.
And I think that for so many women, they're like, I've got to pick one side and go all in. I mean, as a
Mhm.
mom, it's like, do you do baby led weaning or do you do purees? You
Yeah.
only choose one. There's only one way, and you are wrong, whichever one you choose. And it's like, life does not have to be like that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so, honestly, Krista, I think that the way that I got here was through my losses and through these like wake up calls and signals of like, you're building something that's not serving you. And like, what are you going to do? And like, what kind of mom do you want to be? And how are you going to build something that supports that? And what does that look like? And I am so proud of the business I've built, not for any other reason than the fact that like it gives me my life and I
Mhm.
live my life.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
Yeah, truly, truly inspiring for us. I'm wondering if you had any like fears stepping into your power, your like embodying who you are
Mhm.
today.
hmm.
Was there anything holding you back? Any stories you kind of had to reprogram or cobwebs you had to clean out?
Have you guys ever been like at a conference and there's someone sitting in the front row and like taking word for word notes? Like they are desperately seeking the
Mhm.
answer.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
they paid their money and they want you to
Yes.
teach them exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like at the beginning of my journey, I felt a lot like that, where I was like, I will be the best student and you just tell
Mm.
me what to do and you say jump and I say how high and I go. And I think a lot of people do that. And it pulls you further away from your intuition and it also pulls you further away from your mission. And hustle culture and also just too like how people define success is so different and yet like we all kind of picture the same thing of what it should look like. And so I think the only times where I really faced like fears or things was like when I was running off of someone else's definition and then
Mhm.
I arrive in a moment and I'm like I thought this would feel different. This doesn't feel good, or this isn't what I wanted, or like I somehow got off course and need to find my way back. So it's been kind of this journey. And I really do think that I learned it young because it's like I'm
Mhm.
34, but I feel like I've been living this intentionally of like, what does my gut tell me? Or like, does this fit with what I want? Because there are so many people, and I like am surrounded by just like brilliant human beings where they're like, you should go speak on stages. Like you could do
Mhm.
this, or like
Yeah.
you should, and it's like I could do those things, but I don't really want to. And so it's like listening to that and like
Mm.
being unapologetic and
Mm.
like saying just like that's not for me. Like,
Mm.
thank you. That's sweet. But like, not for me.
I feel like that's made you more magnetic.
Yes.
That
It's
is
hard to
like,
get. I
Yeah.
can
dude,
be
it's
hard to get
fucking,
at
I
dude,
know,
times.
it
I
is.
like it.
That's why it's
I
mad
like
me.
it.
I'm like,
Oh.
I need to take note
And
on
just that
that.
discernment, I think, is so powerful
Yeah.
because I think that's what stops or paralyzes people because there's so many um, ways in which you can express. There's so many ways in which
Mhm.
you can be successful, make money, do
Mhm.
whatever. And sometimes I feel I'm like, the menu is so big. This is a cheesecake factory. Like, I don't
Truly.
know what to have. You know what I
Truly.
mean?
Yes.
But to know thyself, to know kind of
Yeah.
like what feels really good and to know what really is aligned with the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
You know, I
Mhm.
think that's like what I'm taking away from that. That's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
I think too, when you talk about like, how do you define success is so important. And I think
Yes.
so many people are working, and so many women specifically are working and they're doing the things. And I don't know if they know why,
I agree.
you know?
And I also fear that they'll arrive, it's not gonna feel good, and then they're gonna lose their ability to trust themselves to make the next decision, right? Because it's like, how many times are we almost out there in pursuit to prove ourselves wrong?
Mm.
And so it's like, "Oh, I thought I wanted the corner office and the high heels and the power suits, but I really like sweatpants and my feet don't fit into high heels." But I've already invested this much, or I've already said
Yes.
this, or I've already told people this is what I'm gonna go after. So if I don't do it, I'm gonna be a failure. And it's like we're working off of other people's maps. And there's a line in the book that says, like, sometimes other people's directions aren't gonna help you reach your destination. And in a world that has an excess of information out there and an excess of opinions, it's really easy for us to say, like, give me your map, give me your map.
Mm.
And it's like, but what if our destinations are so totally different? Like, what I have done is not going to lead you to the same space. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mhm.
And you don't want to be in the same space.
Nah.
And that's what's hard is that social media makes us all kind of curate to the same solution and same space.
Yep.
But you talked about something so important. I think this is part of your discernment is how do you protect your energy? Because
Yeah.
now with kids, it's even more important.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So, I'm here in LA. And last night I was up at 3 in the morning and Coco started sleeping in a big girl bed, but she's also started having dreams, which is fascinating.
Wait, this is my
Wow.
Yeah,
favorite.
so 3 years old and she's never
She's
had
only
dreams.
3? I
Yeah,
can't believe she's 3,
I
honestly. I remember when she was
know.
born.
I
Isn't
know.
that weird?
Yeah,
Wow.
but she started having dreams, which means she's, like, waking up in the middle of the night, which isn't normal for her, and so last night at 3 AM, I had her monitor on the nightstand in the hotel, and I can hear her saying, "Mommy, mommy, show me how to do it," and she's telling me to show her how to breathe, and so I'm literally saying, "Smell the flowers, blow out the candles," and I repeated that on a loop. I was like, "I need to, like, record this and, like, figure out how to do this so I'm not literally sitting there for an hour, literally an hour straight." And it was fascinating because I feel like, as someone who lives in integrity and stuff, I'm like, this is where my energy needs to go right now. I know I have a busy day tomorrow, but like, this is where, like, I was so tempted to be like, I'm booking a flight home, baby. I'll see you in the morning. But, it's fascinating because I am experiencing this season of like, everything feels really full. And it's like, full in not a bad way, but like
Mm.
stretched. And I'm only stretched because I love all the things. And so
Mhm.
it's like there's so much love. I love being a mom and I love the work I do and I love this book. And like, how do I balance all the love? And I think that feels overwhelming at
Mm.
times. But when it comes to, like, staying in alignment and, like, working off of my own definition of success, it's not like, what is it supposed to look like? It's like, how is it supposed to feel?
Mm,
And it's been really unique because I've never launched a book before, and let me tell you, it's a lot of work,
mm,
but I am doing it in a way that is so aligned with how I work, what I'm willing to do, what I'm not willing to do, and wherever it lands and however it does,
Mhm.
it's not up to me anymore. I'm releasing it. There's a reason it's called a book release. You release it into the world and it ends up where it's meant to.
What
yeah.
makes this book launch, like, really unique to what feels aligned to you?
Because everyone has these ideas on what you got to do to sell books.
Yeah, it's so
And it's
No,
different.
like,
no.
you got to have a 3-day event. And I'm like,
Yes.
nope. And you got to go on
Totally.
a book tour in 20 cities. Nope. And, you know, and so it's like fascinating to me because I really went in with my eyes wide open and said, there are things I'm willing to do and there are things I'm not willing to do. And I will only be away from my family X amount of days, which is literally like 6 total.
Mhm.
And, you know, well, I will say yes to certain opportunities, but if I say no, it's not a reflection of me not thinking it's worthy. It's me just saying no because I'm at my bandwidth.
Mhm.
So it's fascinating though, because the book world is weird.
Weird,
I
dude.
mean, weird.
That's why I think it's kept me from the process because I feel like you hear so much about it and you're like, huh,
It's wild though how much
wild.
I loved it.
Okay,
Me
The
same
what do you
whole
mean?
process.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're so like, I could see you being like, this is my outline. This is how
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And just being like
I was
so
very oh,
structured
my
and I
editor was
can't.
like, "Oh, you actually make deadlines," because I was like, "It will be to you by 12:31 midnight," and it was like 12:31 at 10:59 PM, and I was like, "And
Yeah,
send."
you're like, are you done with that edit?
Oh,
Yeah.
literally. Oh, so, I mean, this is like so I wouldn't recommend birthing a baby and, like, turning in your book within, like, 10 days of each other because I was like, I literally met every single deadline that I set, but then, like, there's parts of the process where, like, other people weren't meeting the deadline, and I was like, "I have the ultimate deadline that is about to come through my
Dang.
body, so we've gotta keep it up." But it's wild because, I mean, I can't wait for you guys to write a book, but,
Yeah.
I always said, like, "I will never do this. I will
I
never do it."
remember.
Mhm.
And it is the hardest I've ever worked on
Wow.
anything, the most, like, love and energy I've ever given anything, and I've done it all behind the scenes without, like, anyone reading, knowing anything, like, without any feedback because I was very set on, like, this
I
is
like
my
that.
story. Like, so I did everything backwards. I wrote the entire manuscript by myself without a deal, agent, nothing. I didn't even enter into the world of books because I was like, I just wanna write this for me, and, like, even if nobody ever touches it, sees it, gives a five-star review or whatever, this is my story.
Mhm.
And not even just my story, but, like, these are the things I wanna pass on. Like, I just really pictured my daughters reading it someday. But, yeah, I did everything backwards because I feel like the minute money and deadlines get involved, my creativity is squashed.
Yeah, I really love that backwards because
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that with our process and I'm like, "Oh man, like it just feels like it doesn't allow for." Because when I think of writing, I'm like, you got to just let it all out
Yeah.
and then you kind of
Clean it up.
lean it out and edit it back and
Yep.
so I really love that. It's so fascinating that you gave birth during that time and just that like birth of two
Mhm.
things. And
Yes.
how do you feel like the just those two things happening at once really influenced the other?
Yeah. Well, it one gave me deadlines because I feel like we would just keep editing
Mhm. Yeah.
and editing and editing. And it's like at some point you've got to just release it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was really wonderful. It was funny because I felt this guilt because I didn't even know if the baby in my belly was a boy or a girl. So I'm like writing the book and there's all these stories about Coco. And I was like, by the time this book comes out, this child is going to be like 7 months old. And yet she's not even mentioned in the book. And so I was like, you know, and so that was like really weird because like as a mom, I was like, do I say like to my girls, is it a girl and a boy? Is it children? I don't even know.
Aw.
But someone on my team said this and I loved it. And they were like, as the baby's heartbeat grew stronger, so did yours throughout this process. And there was so much, I mean,
What?
they say too that like writing a book is like birthing a baby. And I was like, well, I
Mhm.
did them both at the same time.
Yes.
But it really is because it's like you're being stretched and you're being challenged and you're
Mm.
like, I loved every bit of it. Like, I am like, everyone go write your book because I mean, here's the thing, and this is what I've really kept close to me, and this is why I think I have good boundaries around this process is because it is not my life's work, but it is a very important piece of the
Mm.
work in my life.
Mm.
And I think it's really easy for authors to like, you get to the end of this marathon of like working on a project for 2+ years and you're like, oh, this has got to just crush it. But it's
Mhm.
like, no, this is just a really important piece of the work in my life.
Mm.
And I love that.
How
Mhm.
do you have such it's like your perspective is so beyond your years.
I know. I think I'm a very old soul. I
Yeah,
think
you
I
are.
think I'm like a
Have you
soul that
ever
came
done a
back.
reading or anything?
Yes and no. So my mom actually was just telling a story because I was asking my mom, I was like, someone on my Instagram messaged me about Coco and they were like, we've been watching her and they were saying they're like, we think she might be a gifted child. And I was like, well, every mom thinks their child is gifted.
I
So
love how you
don't
get tons of messages and you're like, let me read this
yeah,
one.
and I was like, ruffle my feathers more. Tell me about my gifted child. But she is very, like, she is
Intuitive.
very wise and
Mm.
like intuitive. Like, she would be like 2.5, and Drew and I would do a date night, and we'd come back the next morning. So literally 12 hours later, and she'd say, "How was your date? What did you eat? What did you do?"
She
And like,
gosh.
it's like
When
she
you said she's
has
3, I was
yeah.
like,
I
"Huh?"
know.
She has this like spirit about her that does feel really old. And so I called my mom up. I was like, do you think Coco is gifted?
I love that.
And my mom was like, well, I mean, like, yeah, but, and she's like, but you were like that. And she's like, I
Mhm.
remember having a Christmas party with my girlfriends, and you were literally like 7 years old and like sitting at the table and like holding, like, so tell me about your family conversations
I'm
with like
obsessed
these
with
women.
that.
Yeah. And my mom was like, I remember like people were kind of like, what is this child? Like, what is this? And I think I've always been like that. And so it is funny because I feel like I do just have this like confidence that is a
Yes.
part of who I am.
Otherworldly.
But it's also because I just work out of alignment. Like, I am such a person where I'm like, if
Mm.
this is no longer like my methodology, or if I'm about to contradict myself, so be it, because it doesn't feel good anymore. And so that's kind of how I've worked through it. But the book process has been the same way, where I'm like, if I'm going to do this thing, I am committing to doing it my way every step of the way. Like, we had to record the audiobook, and my publisher was like, we need you to leave your city for like 5 days. It takes like 3 days to record, a day in, a day out. And I was like, no. And then I was like, well, I'm not just going to leave them with a no. I was like, let me figure out a solution. So my neighbor, Mary, I call up Mary and I say, Mary, she
What's up?
runs the radio station in Duluth, Minnesota.
Oh.
And I say, tell me that you have a room that I could record an audiobook. And she goes, oh, yeah, we can figure this out. And I go, tell me how much it's going to cost. And she goes, just buy us happy hour. I was like, all right. So then my cousin is a DJ in
This is
Duluth,
unreal.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
And he becomes my sound engineer. So I'm reading my book to like my 50-something divorced cousin. And I knock it out in 2.5 days, and I'm home with my babies at night. And it was just like proof of like me like leaning into the mission of like, yes, this is how you've done things, but like, let's figure it out in a way that like I will live out the words of these pages until my last breath. So like,
Wow.
let me stay in alignment with that. So yeah, it's been, it's just been an interesting
obsessed.
process, but
But it's important. It's like once you have clarity on what your mission is
Mhm.
and what you want from life, then you just work from there.
Yeah.
And it's like, and also I think a lot of people get stuck on that where it's like, oh, I have to go to this
yeah, because
thing.
they're telling me that this is the way. So this is just the way. And it's like, I will never just like say no to someone. Like, I'm like, let me just figure this out. Let me make a few phone calls. I mean, So the lady that was editing it, she's like, it sounds like you live in Mayberry. Because I was like, oh, my brother's office is across the street. And I got pizza at the place that catered our wedding 10 years ago for lunch. And like, I was just like, it is Mayberry. But like, we've created this. Like, it was just a really funny
I
thing.
freaking
I
and
can't
to
wait
be in
till
your
you share
home
that.
is like special too.
Yeah, yeah. And I got to like even say in the audiobook, like produced in Duluth, Minnesota. And I was like, just that line alone and
Wow.
like shouting out Mary and my
Mm.
cousin, like right there. That's all I
Freaking
need.
love it.
How does that alignment translate to how you lead your team?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ooh, that's a great question.
You know?
So we are the most boundary-rich organization I've ever come across in terms of entrepreneurship. And I say that with so much pride. I have people like applying to work for us all the time, not because it's like cushy or there's a ping pong table in an office room because there are none of those things. We don't even have an office. But because I really respect that I want a life, and so does my team. So anything that I want for myself, my team gets. Like, I am not the person that's like, I built this from the ground up and I will reap all the rewards. It is like, if I want to be with my child in the morning and that's my priority, like, I will not check Slack until 10 a.m. We have rules around things like you cannot use your cell phones for work. So like your cell phone is your personal device and I will never reach out to it to take you out of your life because I have recognized that like I'm in a moment with my kid and if my Apple Watch goes off and it's something work related, it pulls me out of that moment of living.
Yeah.
And so there's just like really thick boundaries there. But I also think that my team just really respects me because I will get in the trenches any day of the week. I've played every role at some point in my own company. And I also really appreciate my team. There's a chapter in the book where it's like 1 + 1 = 1,000,000. And it's talking about how anyone that says they're self-made is just full of it because
Mhm.
I recognized specifically after I had Coco when I couldn't do it all that like my job is the visionary and my team are the missionaries. They are the ones like living out the mission and helping me, whether it's through copy or production or support or like whatever that looks like. And my team is so incredible. And they have been with me, I mean, through every evolution. Like my team stays, no one leaves. Um, and I think it's beautiful. And I was actually in the Uber on the way here. I had sent a voice note because I love voice notes
Same.
to my integrator. And I just said, like, hey, I am like MIA this week, but I want you to know I see every moving part. And if I'm not able to express it or acknowledge it, I just want you to know that because things feel easy for me, I know it's a reflection of you. And the Uber guy kind of looks in the rearview mirror and like smiles at me. And he was like, that was a really nice message. And and it's just like I just want people to feel loved and fulfilled and I want them to feel creative and a lot of my team has side hustles or side passions and I encourage that. I'm like the more you feel fulfilled in your life, the more you're going to show up in your work. And so yeah, it's been interesting, but I never thought I'd be a boss. Sometimes I'm like, can somebody take me to boss school cuz like I don't know. I don't know what to do here.
You're doing a great
100%.
job. I mean, just by that, I feel like managing people is such a it's a self-study.
Oh, yeah, it's just putting the mirror up to you and
It's
what you
wild.
say you
the
are.
wildest thing of all time.
100%.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
The
it's not
self-study
easy.
vibe is like real.
Summer is here, and I gotta say, I want smooth, glowing skin. I'm gonna be showing some skin, whether it's shorts or bathing suits, swimsuit cover-ups, all the things. And there's nothing really better than when you see your skin glistening and super, super healthy in the sun's light. I gotta tell you about the body oil that makes my skin glow like none other. It's the Undaria Algae Body Oil from Osea. It is rich. It is never greasy, which, I found to be the case with other oils. It is luxurious and it smells unbelievable. It has like a sunny citrus and notes of sweet passion fruit. It's so good. I put it on after I shower. I'll put it on before I go out, maybe in some shorts or a little skirt. And I always get compliments. Your legs, your arms are just so supple. And it's true. I really love the way it makes my skin feel and look. It helps to sweep away dead skin cells and hydrate for just really soft skin all summer long. So if you are looking for that body oil that doesn't, leave your skin feeling like super slimy and gross and leave any residue, this one is for you, the Undaria Algae Body Oil from Osea. I love Osea products in general. If you're looking to have a skincare line that is truly good for your skin, the skin loves it, try out Osea. So go to oseamalibu.com. You're going to get a special discount just for listening to our show. You get 10% off your first order site-wide with promo code ALMOST30. You'll also get free samples with every order, which I love. They always treat us right. And orders over $50 get free shipping. So you're going to want to go to oseamalibu.com. Promo code is almost 30. I started taking seed about 2.5 years ago, and my digestion has never been better. Not only my digestion, but everything connected to my digestion. I've noticed an improvement in my skin, in my immunity. So, how often I'm getting sick, it's very, very few times during the year. And I'm just so impressed. I actually was not taking seed for about 4 months. I just kind of fell off the train and noticed a difference. I started to get my little breakouts and spots that I normally would before seed. And so I knew it had something perhaps to do with it, and it's all connected. So I would love for you to try Seed. Seed's DSO1 Daily Symbiotic is the real deal. This is a broad spectrum 2-in-1 probiotic and prebiotic. It's a proprietary formulation of 24 distinct probiotic strains in scientifically studied dosages. And what I love about Seed is they're all about the science. You can read about the science on their website. It's pretty extensive and incredibly interesting. This is a 2-in-1 capsule, as I said, and it's awesome because it survives through your digestive tract. That's how they designed it. Most probiotics just kind of lose the juice and don't survive your GI tract. So Seed is designed differently, and that's why it works. So I would love for you to try Seed. It will support ease of bloating, healthy regularity, and ease of evacuation, if you know what I mean. But it will also support your gut barrier, skin health, heart health, and micronutrient synthesis. Start a new healthy habit today. Visit seed.com/almost30 and use the code almost30 to redeem 20% off your first month of Seed's DSO1 Daily Symbiotic. That's seed.com/almost30 and use the code almost30 at checkout for 20% off your first month of Seed's DSO1 Daily Symbiotic. That's seed.com/almost30. Code is almost30.
I think with motherhood and having the second babe, like, what has that felt like? Because it's a totally different ballgame
Totally different
from
ballgame.
one.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
It's wild. Well, first off, I have the easiest babies. And
ugh,
I say this with blessed assurance, thank you, Jesus, because
Mhm.
yes.
Quinn is the easiest, happiest. Oh, she's just like this little ray of sunshine.
Jeez. Mm.
But here's the thing. I feel like my children have these souls
Yeah.
that are just so evident even when
Yeah.
they're in my womb.
Isn't it weird?
It's
It's so weird
crazy.
because when you're younger, you're like nature or nurture. And
Yeah.
when you get older, you're like nature.
Yeah. Well, and
Mm.
it's bananas because I just feel like she is just this easygoing. Like she's the kind of kid. Sometimes we'll lay her down and oh yeah, she's in the room. And you'll
Yes.
you'll go up and look at her and she'll just light up hi, I'm here.
Oh.
And she's just the
Mm.
most she just has this spirit about her. Both of my kids do. Two has been interesting. How do I say this? The baby is the easy one because I've been through it
Yeah.
now. Toddler, everything's new.
Mm.
And Coco is a feeler. Oh man, she is very emotionally intelligent and very aware and mommy, let's talk about feelings. It's all right, let's do it.
Wow.
Let's sit down and do this. But you start to see these things where you're you are a human and you are going to do what you want and you feel a certain way. And I cut your banana the wrong way and I am so sorry. And yet it's beautiful. And I think the biggest challenge is constantly remembering Drew and I, we are on the same team. We want the
Mhm.
same thing. We are doubles in a tennis match, not opponents. And so that I think has been the greatest challenge in this season because we parent differently.
Mm.
I set different boundaries than he does. And the other piece of that is that I'm such a hands-on mom that it's when things get busier, it's I love you, but I can't run in for nap time today or and things like that. And so that has been a little trickier because I want to be available all the time, but different seasons call for different boundaries and what that looks like.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
it's
loved your
interesting.
thing. You did a story about how twos were challenging.
Oh,
You're like,
yeah.
especially too when you're a conscious parent. You're like, I know you're
I'm
listening to everything I'm
so
saying.
conscious.
And I know you're, it's kind of
fucks you a little bit because you're so conscious. You're like,
I'm way too awake to all of this. And I'm like, am I
Yes.
ruining you? Like, I'm like,
You're
okay.
like, am I empowering you or traumatizing you?
I know. Like one
I
night
don't
we
know.
were like, she was just fighting bed and I like literally started crying because I was just like, she was in this moment where it was just like she was feeling so many things and she said, I don't like you. And I was like, even when you don't like me, I love you. I love you and I'm here and I'm not leaving. And it's crazy because I started crying because I was just like, I'm so overwhelmed right now. I don't know what to do. And she grabbed my face with her hands and she goes, Mommy, I will never leave you. You are safe. It's okay to be sad. And I recognized that she was literally repeating the things that I've said to her, where I was like, whoa, you are literally being a mirror. And then she starts going, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. And I was like, okay, all right, here we are. But it was like, it was crazy because I think a lot of times as a parent, you're like, am I getting through to them? You know, and there are all of these glimpses of like, I have repeated this to her, like when she's having a tantrum, like, I'm not leaving you. You're not in trouble. You're safe. You can feel your feelings. And so then it was wild when I was overwhelmed and crying where she was like, grabbed my face and was like, I'm right here.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, child. But then I was like, you know, and I think too, it's like finding the human balance of like, you are not responsible for my feelings, but it is okay that I am a human as well. And I want you to see that like I freaking struggle too. So
I think
balance.
that's important.
It's wild.
I think that's really important.
I cannot.
It's the mind game.
I'm going to get a delight. They're going to be like,
oh, Lord.
How do you, with different parenting styles, like how have you found that compromise or how have you found that middle ground where you both feel, solid just as a parent and what the other one's doing? And
Can I report back when no, I'm just kidding.
I know. I can imagine it's an ongoing process.
I think the hardest thing is that Drew, and here's the best part about this, is like he freaking loves the girls so much that he doesn't ever want to disappoint them.
Mm-hmm.
And so like his love for them has been a lot of times like giving them what they want. And like Coco is a master negotiator. Mommy, I want to read 5 books tonight. And I'm like 3. And she's like 4. And then I'm like, maybe 4. 6? It's like, no. And so the struggle has been in unpacking like what it is in Drew sometimes that says like you can't set the boundary. Because I think that he confuses boundaries with disappointment, which we all have done that. And I think for me, there's a line in the book that says like boundaries don't keep things and people out. It keeps us in our lives. Boundaries are actually like the gatekeeper to keeping us living and like present. And that's been our like biggest challenge is like he will like she can just like push and push and push where I'm like the one. And I think what's been hard about it is it's like I already feel guilt in being the working parent. So I want to be the fun one. I want to be the yes one.
Yes.
And then when I come home and I'm like, boundaries, like we need structure. We need to create these. It's like I am already dealing with the guilt. So then when I'm implementing the boundaries and then when the kid is saying, I don't like you, but I know that they need the boundary, it's like, oh my Lord. So I think that's really been our struggle. And honestly, I think a lot of it is generational and a lot of it is like unpacking. Like, what is it that makes you afraid to disappoint?
Totally.
Or what is it that makes you afraid to have her not like you, knowing that she still loves you? And so that's been, and that's been interesting. And the funny thing is whenever I get frustrated, I'm like, he does it because he loves her so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, if that's the greatest complaint.
Yes.
But-
That would be, Justin, my husband, would be like that. Like even the cats, our babies, the cats, will come into bed and I'm like,
No.
One morning I was like, they're getting your face in me. I'm like, shh.
Yeah.
He's like, don't do that to her. I was like, shh. He's like, don't shh her. And then literally a week later, he goes, shh. I'm like,
there you go.
There you go. I was like, we need that boundary for sleep.
Yes.
Something that I just admire you so much for and appreciate so much about you is the open dialogue about body and your body journey. And I know that being a new mom, that's a whole vibe. What
Total
has that
vibe.
felt like?
Yeah. It's funny because when I wrote the book, initially. It was a business book, which is wild. And what has come out of it is absolutely not a business book. But when I decided to include stuff about body image, it was because I recognized that how we feel about ourselves and the skin that we're in and what we believe about ourselves impacts how we show up in every aspect of our life, whether it's relational,
Mhm.
career, whether it's like signing ourselves up for the race or disqualifying ourselves before it's even begun. And it's so fascinating to me because I've come a really long way in my journey with my body that I honestly don't give it much thought anymore. And I say
Yes.
that with like grace. Like I'm so like right now I'm on a big like health kick in that like I want to feel vibrant, I want to be alive, I
Mhm.
want to like have the energy to do these things in the way I want to do them. But at the same point like I don't stand in front of a mirror and like pick myself apart anymore. And I don't if something doesn't fit me, I don't blame my body, I blame the thing.
Mm.
And so when I wrote the chapters about body image, it felt so relevant because I'm
Mhm.
like, so many women refuse to record the Instagram story or show the picture or sign up for the job or, get on the dating app or like
Mhm.
whatever that is because of what they believe about their body. And there's a line in the book that says like our bodies are our personalities Tupperware. Like, they are just our meat suit, like, the shell of, like, that is housing
Yes.
your heart and your soul, and, like, they are so much less than we fixate on them for.
Yeah,
Like, how much of our lives, how much
I
time
know.
have we focused on what we hate about ourselves, what we wanna change, why we aren't enough, why we don't work, and it's like, we are wasting our lives
Mhm.
focusing on things that really don't disqualify ourselves from our dreams.
Yeah, it's like the best way to take power from women is
Absolutely.
just have us constantly living our lives working on fixing this thing that will never be
Yeah.
fixed. It's
Mhm.
just constant. It's like, yeah, I think about that with even my journey. I'm like, oh my God, how much time and energy was spent just
Mhm.
thinking about it and counting and, planning and all of that is just so exhausting. And so many women struggle with that. I think it's been
Yes.
fascinating in our journey, Jamie Lynn Kerna,
Yeah.
we ended up talking a lot about body in our interview with her. And it's just fascinating someone that success and that level, anybody that we know, no matter their success level or no matter what they do, how visible or not visible they are, they struggle.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just crazy.
I feel like I've leveraged something that used to be an insecurity to be like my greatest asset, which
Mhm.
is fascinating because have you guys ever had like an insecurity and you want to call it out before someone else can weaponize it against you?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
where you're like, I know my nose is funny, or like I know I got a chin here, or like I
Yes.
know,
Yes.
it's like sometimes we're like so afraid to be called out on these things
Mhm.
that guess what no one is paying attention to that we almost like use it as like a crutch of like, hey guys, I know I'm this way, so you can't say that so that I feel like crap. I'm aware. And it's fascinating because it's been really interesting doing interviews and like the men all bring up the body thing. And it's
With you?
yeah, well,
Huh.
and it's funny like
I would
how
love
they
to hear that.
it's funny how they
They're like,
try to word it. And so sometimes I'm like, okay, your audience is gonna like look me up and be like, what are we talking about here? I mean, I
Mhm.
truly
I know
believe that because I'm
Yes.
like, I
yes.
am a normal person with a very
Yes.
normal body.
Yes.
That's why
Yes.
it's like
Ah,
even when I did body
Yes.
episodes,
yeah,
it was hard for me to talk about because I'm like, now you're gonna be like, what is
yeah.
she talking about?
Yeah,
We're
or like they'll say like,
Mhm.
"What are you can't talk. You're like
yes.
you're not
Mhm.
curvy. You don't qualify for curve and you're not plus size, but you're also not straight size." And you're like and it's like,
Yes.
"Why are we still categorizing that's part of the problem?"
Mhm.
It's fascinating. But yeah, I really love that I included a lot of dialogue about body and my journey with my body because I want women to see that it's like stop waiting for your body to be perfect and stop trying to separate your mind and your soul from your body. Like, I just feel like I can show up wholly me in the skin I am, in the skin I'm in. I am.
Mhm.
I don't know where that was going.
It was pretty profound too. It was like,
Yes.
whoa.
But I like show up as just like me and I like don't
Mm.
give much thought. Like I give the same amount of thought to my body as I do like my brain.
And I can imagine, I'm not a mother yet, but I can imagine that that initiation also just allows you to see your body in a
Yeah.
completely different way. It's
Yeah.
it's like seeing the power of the body, the transformation,
Yes.
it created
Resilience.
the resilience, it created a
Yes.
being. It's just I know we hear it, but then when you experience it, I can
Yeah.
imagine it's just
Well, and it's funny too how we like talk to Coco has really helped
Mm.
me transform. Like, food makes you strong. These foods
mm,
help you see better. This helps your hair grow. Oh my
yes.
goodness, when you rest, your body is growing and stretching. Like, and like, look at how strong you
Mm.
are. And when she toots, we're like, your belly's talking. And like, it's like, it's just funny. And I like often think about there's a story about how the first time I became aware of my body was when I was 8 and a boy pointed out my leg hair.
Oh my god,
And I went
Wow.
home and I like asked my parents, can I shave my legs?
mm.
And my parents were like, you are 8 years old. No. And guess what? I did it anyways.
Same.
And I think about and I've polled my Instagram audience multiple times on this. Like, do you remember the first time you like suddenly became aware of your body? Like, as in it's not just like the thing that you like go down the slide with, but like it's a thing and it's not quote correct. And I mean, it's devastating to see the age. And I think it's only getting younger, to be
Mhm.
honest. And that story was about how, like, I vowed to wear pants no matter the temperature of the room. And my mom, bless her heart, was like angry at me for like going against her wishes, but then taught me, like, here's how to shave your legs without making a battlefield of cuts because, there's so many things in our lives that we're going to be told are wrong or different. And, it's I think about my children and there was actually a story that got cut from the book and I'm reading it on my podcast because I loved it and I almost fought for it, but at the last minute I was like, let's just remove it. But it was about Coco and her mole and like when she was 2, she like kept licking her finger trying to wipe a mole off her arm. And I was like, baby, this is your special spot. Like this makes you unique. I love your spots. Like I want to count them every day. And I thought I was having this really profound parenting moment, and then she said like pancakes or something, and I was like, okay, that didn't land. And then the next day, I went to wake her up, and she started kissing that spot, and she
Mm.
started kissing the spots on my body, and I realized like, whoa, like what we are told to believe about ourselves like sinks really deep,
Mhm.
and so it makes me think about like what are we told and what are we consuming and how does that make us feel? And if she can change her mind in a day, why can't we change our mind in a week or a month or a year? And so I think we're all on that
Mm.
journey.
Mhm.
Side note question, just on consumption and kids, like,
Yeah.
do you have like a boundary around that or just kind of a thought around that?
I totally was like, we will never give our kids screens. And
I
now I'm like,
know.
would you like to watch Luca today?
Yes. You're like, "Coco Melon?"
Yeah, we don't do that one. Yeah,
You're
but
like,
it
Coco
is
is actually on TikTok.
yeah.
She's famous.
Oh God, no. Yeah, it's fascinating. So like, I think there are a lot of ideals in parenting.
I
And
every
then I
time I
also
say
think
anything, I'm
there's
like, "Oh."
I
reality.
don't
Yeah,
know.
it's like be ready to contradict yourself. There's literally like things where it was like in the book where it's like, my child will not eat GMO food. And then it was like, here, would you like a mum mum? Like, where I was like, chalk that up as another thing I didn't know. But we absolutely have boundaries. So like she gets to watch PBS. Like PBS is so wholesome. Like the other
Yes.
day when she was struggling with sleep, I was like, Daniel Tiger, where are you? Where is your episode about sleeping? Because she'll sing the songs like that. When you're sick, rest is best, rest is best. And I was like, thank you, Daniel, for that beautiful
like,
moment. And so there are absolute tools and stuff. And like we're really cautious about like what she watches. Like we don't allow like scary parts in movies and
Oh
Mhm.
like
my
something like
God.
things like that. I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, she like we will go as long as we possibly ever can without her having a phone. Like I was 16, so I'm gonna hold that over her. And I'm
Mhm.
also gonna try to find parents that also hold that boundary so that
Yeah.
it's not like my friends all have this, but she's in a Montessori school and we have not had the traditional parenting experience because like of COVID. So like we
Mhm.
have not gotten to meet other parents or like visit her classroom or things. And so things are finally opening up. And we got to go in her classroom and we were just kind of asking them. And the teacher of the middle school, we're talking to the middle school because we're like, how does this work? And she goes, if kids have a question, they have to look it up in the encyclopedias and they have to like show me that they looked for it. And if they can't find it after 10 minutes or if it doesn't exist there, then they can search on the computer. And I was like, oh, I freaking love that because
Mhm.
it is a
Mm.
tool and
Mhm.
it's going to be a part of our lives and we can't avoid it. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want her on a screen and here I am on a screen. And so, yeah, it is fascinating. But yeah, there are a lot of things where I
What's
was
the
like,
beef with Coco Melon?
well, so Coco Melon. Okay, do you
Is
want to
there
hear?
drama?
Do you want to hear?
Yes, I sort of figured.
Okay, so here's the thing with Coco Melon. So they have advertised. Okay, so let's look at it from a business standpoint.
Okay.
So they like sold it for like, I don't know, $1 billion. Don't quote me on this. We should
Yes.
fact check
Mhm.
this. But
Jamie?
yeah, right. Where's our Jamie? But it was sold because they have ads in it. Now, here's what happens is Coco Melon is overstimulating to get children addicted to it. So if you watch it, the noises sound like an arcade, and the way that it is shot is visually raising like dopamine levels in children,
Wow.
literally to create addiction in them. And there's actually been studies, so this is not just like my
Yeah, I've heard
It's not a
parenting thing.
cartoon. It's like
it's a
a.
It
cartoon.
Oh, okay.
is, but yeah, it's like an animated thing. And it's like
Whoa.
they have gamified this show where kids literally get addicted to it, where they can't like be in a still room because they're so used to being overstimulated. And so I saw like, and she's actually never watched the show.
Mhm.
But I saw that like in an article. And it's like, of course, if I don't already have enough things to worry about. But like PBS is really a
PBS is
safe bet. But yeah, it's
classic.
crazy that, and then you think
Wow.
of it from a business standpoint, it's like the more views they have, the more ad dollars they get. They sold
Yes.
this as a company. This isn't just an entertainment thing. This is like, how do we get more views? You get more views by creating stimulating
Dang.
content. Children get addicted. Bada bing, bada boom.
That is so heartbreaking.
Isn't that wild?
It's
Oh,
heartbreaking because they don't have the choice.
Mhm.
You know, kids
I
don't know what's
know.
going on and they don't have the choice to participate or understand what's happening. And that's a brain addiction.
Absolutely it is.
You know, it's
Mm.
a physical addiction.
Yeah. It's actually scary.
There's like some drama with Teletubbies too.
I don't know
Tell
that
me
one.
more.
I'll
Yeah.
tell you. I'll remember what it was, but there's some like weird things about Teletubbies.
There's some like weird subliminal messaging and things too.
For
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Did anyone watch Zoobaloo Zoo?
No.
No.
Was
Oh,
it weird?
no, it was amazing. It had. You remember Ben Vereen?
No.
Nope.
Alrighty. I guess I know what we're watching tonight,
Lamb chop?
ladies.
Lamb chop?
Ladies. I love lamb
Oh yeah,
chop.
lamb chops. Sing
You
along.
Come on in. Sing your song. It was like Lamb Chop on PBS was like
I
the
did
biz.
Pee-wee's Playhouse, which was a little,
Yeah, it's a little
dicey.
sketchy. You know what though? My sister and I
Interesting.
often
When there's
talk
an
about
older man,
this.
it's like, good.
Yeah. Well, we often talk about because we're like, oh, we have all these ideals of like organic parenting, like in the
Yes.
fields frolicking. We do live that life a lot when we're up
Mhm.
north. But we often tease my mom because I'm like, we watched a lot of TV. And my sister was like, Mom, I remember when you limited my consumption to 6 hours a day, and I was so angry. I mean, we watched a lot of TV. And like, we
6
do.
hours?
I mean, literally, like, my
was
sister
the
watched
babysitter.
Pocahontas every single day for
Oh, yeah.
months. And I was like, a full movie? And like, she was like, twice in a day. Like, and so like, and it's funny because my parents were insane parents and like all of us kids turned out really good. So whenever me and my sister start like doubting, like, oh, is this okay? We're like, well, we turned out all right. And like, we knew the whole TGIF
thing.
lineup, so we're
No,
okay.
TJF, Sabrina the Someone
Yes.
goes, you remind me of Sabrina or Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I was
Melissa
like, that's
Joan
hilarious.
Hart.
Melissa Joan Hart,
That's
baby.
so
Family
funny.
Matters.
Full House.
Full House.
Yep.
Sabrina.
Yep.
What was
The
other one?
Suzanne Summers one.
Yeah, Step by Step.
Step by Step. Yep.
Mhm.
Step by step.
Boy Meets
Day
World.
by-
Boy
Boy
Meets
Boy-
World.
Boy Meets World.
Mhm.
Oh
Yep.
my God. Your
Yep.
sister, I love her.
Yeah,
She's amazing. She's
a
pregnant.
hoot. She's pregnant.
How does that?
Wow.
So okay, so here's the funny. So we're all very like open in my family about like ovulation and
Mhm.
cycles and the moon. And I had passed along all of my like ovulation tracker. Like basically as
Yes.
soon as Quinn came out, I was like, take it all. I'm done. So
No
pass
more
the door-
kids.
No more.
Okay.
All done. Ship has sailed. Out. Over now. And so the day I brought Quinn home from the hospital, I knew my sister was supposed to get her period. So I was like, Cater, did you take your pregnancy test yet? And she was like, no, like, no, I think I ovulated late this month. Da, 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 da. So then like a couple minutes later, I was like, if you're not telling me because I have a brand new baby in my arms and you don't want to spoil today, this isn't about me. Tell me what happened. And she's like, oh my God, I took the test like 2 hours ago. And she was like freaking out. So it's really special because I was like, no, this is only going to like joy upon joy. Like, this is not about like whose moment is what. Is like, this is so freaking cool. So, I'm very excited to watch her become a mom and for her to kind of understand what I've been going through the last couple years. And I'm also excited to give her all the things. Like literally as we like are getting out of baby clothes and stuff, I'm like, take this and I get to see your kiddo in this. So yeah, that's been really special. And I wasn't ever sure like if we would overlap in this way because she's 6 years younger than me. And so part of me too is like, the season of waiting for us. Like, and now it's like cool. Like our kids are going to be less than a year apart, and that's going to be really fun.
Cousins, baby.
Yeah.
I love seeing you and your fam.
Yeah.
Like your parents, your grandparents.
It's really rare.
really rare and special and just like a really good reminder, you
Yeah.
know? And I know that not all families look the same
Yeah.
and not everyone has their parents or grandparents around, but the people that you do call family, I
Yeah.
just feel like anytime I catch that on social, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that's such a good reminder of like what is important
What
as far as like
matters.
that relationship goes and pouring into that and just being present for that.
Yes.
I forget what I was listening to. I was listening to something and they were talking about seeing their parents and how it's kind of not morbid, but it's like, if we think about no, but like if you think about how many years you have left
Yeah.
and then how many times a year you
Yes.
see them.
Yeah.
Say you see your parents 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And then how many years you have left, do the math. And it's
Yeah.
like, wait, could I be seeing them a couple more times a year?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like that
Yes.
made me really think and how much energy I'm focusing on, like, oh, this is a inconvenience or this is blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
It's like,
Or I'm busy. I'm
Yes.
busy. I'm busy.
am I going to think that when they're not
Yes.
there? So,
Yeah.
how has your family just kept you grounded, I guess, through just all of the transitions and success?
Yeah.
And how do they like support you?
It's so cool. I really want my parents to write a parenting book. I would die at whatever would come out of his mouth. I literally have no idea.
They're like 6 hours of TV.
Yeah.
That's
Here you
pretty much
are. No, they are like literally insanely incredible. And one of the coolest things about having children now is seeing my parents with my children and imagining the years that I don't remember, right? Like seeing my dad loves babies. And Drew and I took our first trip away from both of them. And my dad literally did the middle of the night feedings with Quinn and he's like, I got home and he's like, here's her schedule. Here's how she likes the bottle. And like, I was like, okay, she's my, got it. You were with her 2 days, but it was so cool because I was like, man, like to see that because I don't remember those days, obviously. But what's really beautiful about my family is, so I have an older brother, younger sister, and we are all very successful. I will say that with pride. And we're all very different. And it's kind of like the 50% identical, 50% opposite. Like there are so many things because of our shared experiences or our shared personalities or the traits. We are very alike, but there are so many things about us that are like, what planet are you on? And we celebrate each other. Like nothing is too small to celebrate. And I love that because it's like writing a book is a really freaking big deal, but so is turning in 2 weeks notice or, like hiring another person or whatever. And we're all entrepreneurs, which is wild because my parents were not entrepreneurs at all. My mom was a nurse. My dad worked at a paper mill. And so it's really cool to see like the entrepreneurial spirit. We have that like in common, but we all do it very differently. And our family text thread is like my favorite and it pumps every day. And it's like just joy and real. And we're not afraid to ask each other the hard things. And so it's like we're really walking through life together. And I love that and I value that. And to your point too of like how often you see your family and stuff, it's like so many of us like go out in pursuit of our dreams or do these things so that we have more freedom so that we can prioritize our values. And we say things are our values, but when you look at your calendar or your conversation, oftentimes they don't line up. And I think that's where we're kind of living with that like struggle or pressure, like feeling like we're not enough because we're not actually like living into the value.
Yes.
100%. My last question. What's your ideal good life right now? Like, how would you define success for yourself right now?
I really want to get this book out into the world. And it's weird because I always thought books were a big
Mhm.
ego play. I mean,
Mm.
they kind of can be.
Yes.
But I always was like, why do people do
I
this?
remember. You're like, I don't know.
I
Mhm.
I care so much about people being touched by it in a way that like I couldn't understand, like with a depth and like a ferocity of like where I catch myself being like, why am I doing all this work right now? It's because I care so much about it and I believe in it.
Mhm.
And like it is I mean, it is my best work today, and I say that with, like, just, like, I, like, am really proud of myself. But the good life right now is, like, getting this book out into the world, but, like, bringing the people who, like, helped make it possible on the journey with me.
Mm.
And if you say that writing a book is like birthing a baby, like, there are doulas in my life all around me
Mhm.
reminding me to breathe and to, like, not
Mm.
push too hard and to, like, take it slow and to, like and so it's like, I want it to be just, like, this celebration of, like, the process, but also the stories and the
Mm.
years that made the stories possible. And as I'm, like, hearing people's takeaways and things, like, and I'm like, "Oh," like, someone was like, "This one line, like, changed my life." And I was like, "Oh," like, that I didn't think twice about that line, but it's,
Mhm.
like, cool to see how people interpret it and, like, what they take away from it. And so it is really wild to me, like, how much I care about it, but, like, in a way of, like, I just can't wait to see it, like, have its wings and, like, get out into the world, which is
Yes.
weird.
Mhm.
I mean, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And it
To
reflects
love it.
it
It feels good.
yes.
It
Yes.
feels really good.
It tells me about your, like, genuine passion for that process and, like,
Yeah.
really pouring your heart into it.
Yeah, and I would do
Mhm.
Because
it
not
all
everyone
over
writes their
again.
books, I'll say it.
I'll
Yes.
say it. She
You know what
said
was
it.
funny is when I did my
She
audiobook,
said it.
like, it went really fast because they were like, "It's gonna take, like, 4 days," and I was like, "Give me, like, 2."
Yeah.
And, afterwards, I, like, asked the editor or whatever, and I was like, "Oh, that was really fun,
Yeah.
like, I really loved it," and she was like, "That's because you wrote it." And
Yes.
she was like, "You would not believe how many audio" because this woman produces, like, hundreds of audiobooks a year, and she was like, "You wouldn't believe how many people sit down at a mic and they're like, 'I would have never said that,' or like, 'This wasn't right,' or like, 'I need to call, this wasn't'" yeah. And I was like, "Whoa," and I was like, "What percentage of people, like, actually write their books?" And she was like, "I would say 60% have a ghostwriter, 40% actually are in the work."
I'm
And
not
I was like,
surprised.
"That's wild,"
Wow.
which is
Wow.
crazy. And here's what I would challenge your listeners is like, next time you read any book, I hope it's mine, but next time you read any book, read the acknowledgments. When I became an author,
Mm.
or in the process of writing the book, I read a lot. I love reading, and I read
Mhm.
just for fun. Like, I don't read, I can't read the nerdy stuff. And I always read the acknowledgments, and there are so many people that go into the process. And it's wild because the author's name is the one on the cover. But there are so
Mm.
many people, from editors to agents to publishers to the person that designed the cover to the person that shot the bio photo to the like,
Mm.
and it's beautiful because it's like there is that chapter in my book, like where 1 + 1 = 1,000,000. It's like when we keep coming together
Mhm.
for the mission, it's made possible. So it's my words and my story, but like, man, there were people behind me every step of the way, and I
Mm.
think that's so cool.
It is so cool. It is so
Mm.
cool.
The title's so you too.
You want to hear how we landed on
Yes.
that?
Yes,
I actually
please.
wrote down, I was like,
Do you
title.
want to hear other titles that we
Yes,
had throughout
please.
the process?
I kinda wanna, like, guess.
You got any ideas? You're gonna die at this
The
story
work
about
meets
one
the
of
woo.
them. No, but I mean,
Woo
that's
meets the work.
good. So the first title, the first working title, because I actually laughed because I have like a folder with like, so the first title was Enriched. And I actually really like that title still
Mm.
because someone had said to me, they said, if you read my book, actually in the epilogue is my favorite part of the book because it's talking about this
Mm.
massage therapist and how the whole book came to be.
Mm.
It's a really weird story. And she said to me, like, "You're gonna empower so many people through this book." And then she goes, "No, no, no. Empower isn't the right word. You're gonna enrich the lives of people through this book." And I loved the word enrich because it was like, empower kind of signifies that we've lost the power somewhere. And I don't
Mhm.
really think we have. But enriched, so the first working title was Enriched. Then it was Close Your Eyes, because it was like all about like coming home to yourself, which is a great theme in the book. And I remember I was getting my hair cut, and I like told my hairstylist I think we're gonna call the book Close Your Eyes. And she's like, oh, that sounds like a horror. Like, close your eyes and like the monster. And I was like, oh, it's ruined. I was like, this is why people don't tell people their babies' names before the babies are born. But I was like, thank God for that feedback. She's like, oh, that sounds scary. And I was like,
crazy. I'm like, I don't know if it's my trauma, but like, and then what?
yes.
Like, I literally think I'm like,
And we were like visualizing like, close your eyes.
I'm like,
So that was the book title number 2. And then it was literally 10 days before Quinn was born. And you guys, I suck at naming things. Like my first course was named the Jenna Kutcher course. I literally had mugs made with like JK course. And like, I mean, I couldn't name my children for like days. Like we were in the hospital and they're like, you need to name your child before you leave. And it was days before Quinn was born. Everything's due. We're finally like the title is the last thing. And I was voice texting people to get help because I was like, I don't know what to name it. I literally don't know. And I kept describing it. And I was like, it's the difference in a conversation when you get past the how are you and like you feel safe enough to answer the question like, how are you really? And I kept saying that. And then someone was like, why don't you just call it how are you really? I was like, really? And then I was like, I got to sit on this because it wasn't like what I pictured. And then it was perfect.
I fucking love it.
I love it too. And I couldn't believe it wasn't taken.
Yes, that's what I thought too. I was like, how is this not a whole thing?
I know. So,
because it's like a whole
it is. It's a vibe.
brand.
It's an energy.
It's a whole vibe.
brand.
The whole vibe. It's like a whole like merch line.
Yeah.
And like
it
a
should
whole
be.
like dad hat line.
Yeah.
We'll be affiliates.
Can you help? Yeah. Can you help me with that?
I got you. We'll do the best. We'll be your affiliates. We'll package the merch.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
We got that.
Thank you.
This was so fun.
I
I'm
know.
so
Thank you for
grateful
having
you
me.
came in person.
I know
Thank
this
you.
was
Excited
a
to hang.
blast. I know. Thank
get
you
more
guys.
time.
Yes.
The book is out today.
Yes.
The book is out today.
Release.
Release,
Thank you.
release,
Thank you.
release.
All right. Well, this won't be the last time. I feel like we
No.
have many more to
Yes.
do.
I want to
Yeah.
come to your house.
Can
Yeah.
you?
Yes.
That'd be great. Do you want to all try to fit in my closet so we can record something together?
Yes.
Actually,
I'm
no,
done.
no work.
Yeah.
No
That's true,
no
actually.
work.
That's true. That's
No
true.
work.
Come hang.
I honestly, it's like your places are like my dream.
Mhm.
I'm
You're
like,
always invited.
like the woods.
Do it.
Okay, guys, go get the book. We'll see you soon.
Yes, we love you.
Love you much.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Again, the book is How Are You Really? You can go to howareyourreallybook.com, and then you can go to jennakutcher.com. You can find her on Instagram at Jenna Kutcher, and then you can find her podcast, Gold Digger Podcast.
And thank you to our sponsors for this episode. As always, if you're new to the pod, we just are master vetters. We bring you brands we love and use ourselves. You can find all discount information in our show notes or on almost30.com, along with all of our other partners. Thank you. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode.
We'll see you soon. Bye.